crises and the fact that this is the end of the railroad boom, these things are intimately related. The crisis means, the financial crisis means that there's an inability to borrow. The crisis is manifested in part by the problems that the railroad companies are having repaying their loans, and so you get this hand-in-hand nature of the various ends of the booms in the financial crises. So you can see also on this picture, which is on your handout, the boom and bust cycle. So there'd be a big surge in the amount of construction, and then a bust, and then a lull that corresponds to an economic downturn, recession or depression, and then another boom, and then a bust, and then another boom, and then another bust. The amount of the amount of railroad construction that was taking place in the United States was a very large share of the total economy. So the estimates are that of total investment, so C plus I plus G plus net exports, that railroad construction was 20% of the total investment spending in the 1870s and 15% of the total investment spending in the 1880s. So that's one industry contributing a huge chunk of total investment, which is why when the railroads are unable to get the borrowed money because of the financial crisis, then the whole economy slopes down into recession because the inability of the railroads to borrow to undertake the construction is taking away a huge chunk of investment, which then kicks off a downturn and get our standard macro story going there. The construction is focused on the Midwest, the Southwest, and the Northwest because the Northeast is already well covered by transportation systems. All right. Constructing railroads, concept of positive externality comes in here. Sam. Why is there not construction in the Southeast? I think a couple reasons. I'm not 100%. I think the big reason is the existence of so many navigable rivers that allow the transport of goods to market across through the rivers. And they're heading to the Mississippi. Oh, no, I have to look it up. You don't like that answer. I'll look it up. Yeah. Prithvi. Yes. Yes. Prithvi's question is unemployment also a part of the story of these downturns? Absolutely. So you have a substantial chunk of that labor force which is doing this railroad construction. And so when the railroad construction stops, you have a lot of industrial unemployment. And we're becoming, as you'll see, I hope later today, more and more of an industrial and less of an agricultural nation. And so you get the layoffs, and then you get the multiplier effects. And so you get these periods of periodic times of economic downturn. What am I writing down? What was your question? Why not the Southeast? Got it. Okay. All right. Positive externalities. Constructing railroads generates positive externalities. Somebody give me a definition. What's positive externality mean? Give me an example, any example. Good. It's a benefit to society, and there's one other piece to it. So there's positive externality when there's a benefit to society that is not, not paid, it's not economically accounted for. It could be that. No, we don't want the rivals thing right now. That has to do, non-rivals has to do with public goods. Colin. Other than what was intended, so we're getting closer. So it's a benefit to society that may not be accounted for. It's other than what was intended by whom? Not by society, but by the folks who were engaged in the transaction, right? So positive externality is when there's a benefit to society that may not be accounted for in the economic figures that we come up with. It may be, but it may not be. But the key point is that it's not intended or it's not benefiting the initial parties to the transaction. So we call it marginal external benefit. There are external benefits, the benefits to society, that are beyond the benefits that accrue just to the parties to the transaction. So in this case, for railroads, the parties to the transaction are the companies that are building the railroads, right? So what we're going to come up with is a list of what might have been perceived external benefits to constructing the railroad. Okay, here we go. So groups. This wedge, groups across the row. Unmole, turn around and join the group behind you. So if you're single, turn around and join the group above or below you. These three are a group. These 1, 2, 3, 4 are a group. 1, 2, 3 are a group. Spread that way. 1, 2, 3 are a group, and along the rows this way are a group. Come up with a list in each group. Know who your reporter is. So when I call in your group, you know who your reporter is. And make sure you have at least 2 things that you agree to on your list of perceived external benefits to constructing a railroad. Perceived external benefits to constructing a railroad. Yeah. I'm back. Oh, where's Rachel? Rachel, you gonna be my scribe? All right. So I'll drop a big hint, see if it's on anybody's list. The period that we're really focusing on right now is the period that comes right after the Civil War. which was a lot of military strife. So we'll see if that comes up on anybody's list, or if anybody just added it quickly to their list. Depends on whether we have any history majors who are going to raise their hand. All right, I need one. Who's your reporter? Reporter.
I'll do it.
You'll do it. What's your name?
Ali.
Ali. What you got?
So basically, the
just one.
railroads enabled the area around to develop. So once farmers could take this off the market, they could produce more goods. Maybe have some more like mineral stores that they could sell to the rest of the community there. So
Wow, that was a lot. Okay, so development of towns in the areas around where the railroad went. Is that good? Okay. Just put development of towns. That'll do. Cool. All right, let's see. I need another one. You guys have one? Different than that? Sure. What you got? Sure. What's your name?
got labor mobility.
Calvin. Labor mobility. Oh. So it enables workers to move to find the higher paying jobs or the better jobs. Is a higher paying job always a better job? I'll leave you to ponder that for the rest of your life. Mark, what you got? Quicker communications and flow of information. So one of the things that goes along with the construction of the railroad is, think about this. In the United States, we had what was called a single track system. In Europe, they had a dual track system. So you see this when you take Amtrak in the West Coast. With a single track system, the trains that are going west and the trains that are going east are all sharing the same track, right? So it's sort of like driving on a road that's only one car wide, right? So you've got two cars that are driving on a road that's one car wide, and you have to pull over to the side to let the other car by, sort of like most of the streets in Berkeley. Right? So with a single track system, you've got trains that are going in opposite directions, both on the same track. This is the genesis of those problems you had to do in algebra, about how long would it take until the trains hit each other if they were both going 20 miles an hour and so on. Okay, so one solution to this is to have the trains hit each other. That's probably a bad solution. The second solution to having a single track system is to have a system of communication that you can use to send information from one railroad station to the next railroad station that will say, train number 7 heading west has just left our station, and we've just done our algebra 2 problem here, is estimated to arrive at your station in 48 minutes. And if the conductor in station number 2 gets that message, then they're going to hold the train, right, that's going in the opposite direction, so the two trains go kaboom. I looked for a video of trains going kaboom, because I know I've seen an old one of that, but all I could find was like recent ones, and that was too gory. And I had already done like Nicole Kidman, so I wasn't going to do it. So one of the developments that comes with the railroad is the telegraph system. The telegraph system is developed to allow this communication from train station to train station so that the trains don't smash into each other. But the telegraph system allows for, in that time, nearly instantaneous transmission of information. So it's not only transmitting whether train 1 has left the station or not, it can transmit, like stock prices and interest rates and prices of commodities and all sorts of other information that's transmitted. So we get these dual developments. Good idea. All right, let's go on the other side. See what we get on this side. Aditya. Is that right? Aditya, what does your group have? Okay, so we're going to spread the country out further. We're going to have a greater spread of the population. Okay, so an increased spread of the population. What's the advantage? Think back. What are the lands that were settling? When did they join the country? What's the advantage to a greater spread of the population? It's higher T over L. That's good. That is one advantage. The other advantage is it legitimates the claim to the lands, right? So go back to the map we had on the day we did transportation the first time, and that map showed you when various parts of the country became parts of the United States, and the Oregon territories, the Texas annexation, California, all of that's in the 1840s. So if those lands are going to be part of the United States, we want to get Americans out there to legitimate the American claim to those lands. That's one of the things that a railroad can help do. All right, give me another one. You have anything different? What's your name? Aton. What do you got?
We said that it generates more demand, so it reduces by increasing the size of the market and makes people in less amount of time.
All right, increases the size of the market, increases demand. Oh, it's that little button on the side. Yeah, there you go. All right, who else? Anybody got one that has to do with military? Hold that thought. I'm not going to write it down, but hold that thought. Make sure I come back to it. Okay. All right, Sam, what you got? Bingo. The absence of a railroad system that spanned the whole country made it pretty difficult during the Civil War for the North to get supplies and troops to the places where they needed to be. That was actually to our advantage because there wasn't a railroad system for the most part in the South, and so it was really kind of hurting the Confederacy more than it was hurting the Union. But it certainly illustrated the value of having a railroad system for coordinating these military efforts. Anything else? Anything else they have on their list they want to put on my list? What you got? Increased employment? That was the same as yours. Yeah, okay, heck, we'll put it up there. Why not? I wasn't going to put it up there a minute ago, but now I got it a second time, so now we'll put it up there. So the increased employment from the construction itself, is that what you mean? Yeah. I'm not sure that's actually an externality, so we're going to bracket that. Patrick, what you got? So back up to the very first one, the development of towns. So included there is not just that there are going to be people who live in those towns, but there's going to be services in those towns that will be services geared towards the railroad, whether that railroad traffic is freight traffic or whether that railroad traffic is passenger traffic. Way up top, what's your name? Ivan. It's things that benefit the country that don't benefit the railroad company. So the externalities are benefits to the country that are not captured, they're not benefits that are captured by the railroad company. Okay, and improved transportation allows both the movement of people, but also, and goods, right? So transportation network, that was an important part of our specialization and trade discussion, right? So having an improved transportation network allows specialization and trade. Allows specialization and trade, which increases the overall amount of output in the economy. Fewer household manufacturers, more wheat and corn. Okay, so in a private market, in your standard supply and demand Econ 1 private market, does a private market take account of the positive externalities, yes or no? No, it does not. So private market left to its own devices does not take account of positive externalities. Does it produce a quantity that is the same as what society wants, more than what society wants, or less than what society wants? Less. So the private market left to its own devices produces less than what, thank you, Rich, produces less than what society would want. We can draw a picture. We put things measured in dollars on the vertical axis. We put quantities on the horizontal axis. Ink color, blue, why not? And we have a downward sloping curve that I'm going to call the private marginal benefit. So PMB for private marginal benefit. That's our standard private demand curve. So if we're just doing supply and demand, it's essentially the same as that demand curve. in the presence of positive externalities, there are external benefits. There are benefits to society that are not received by the parties to the transaction. And so we show those marginal external benefits as something that add to the private marginal benefit. And we can add the private marginal benefit and the marginal external benefit, and together, those things equal the social marginal, I'm running out of space, benefit. So the social marginal benefit which is equal to the marginal external benefit plus the private benefit. So I'm just taking the private marginal benefit and adding to it an amount that measures the external benefit. Now drawn here, just a standard marginal cost or supply curve, so private marginal cost curve, the P there stands for private. A market left to its own devices is going to produce a quantity and charge a price where the private marginal cost intersects the private marginal benefit curve, dash it over, call it P sub P for private, dash it down, call it Q sub P for private. So the private quantity and the private price. Society, however, benefits from this good, in this case the construction of railroads. And society would like there to be more railroads constructed than the railroad construction companies left to their own devices would construct. And the amount of railroads that society wants is where that social marginal benefit curve intersects your private marginal benefit curve, and that gives us the social quantity, Q sub S for social quantity. And associated with that is the socially optimal price, which is above the private price. What can we do to get the railroad construction companies to internalize the externality? Patrick has a question. Yeah, I drew the picture assuming perfect competition. I could redraw the picture with monopolies or oligopolies or some sort of market power. We get the same bottom line, just a messier picture. And so since we get the same bottom line, I always like the easier picture if it gets me the right bottom line. So yeah, good point. All right, what can we do to make them internalize their externality? Subsidize production. Give tax incentives and subsidizing production would be the same way. So that's a subset. So subsidize production. We need some way to subsidize production. Who's providing the subsidy? The government. Why the government? Why not you and me? The government is representing you and me. This is all of us who are benefiting. We're all benefiting, but it would be a huge coordination problem for all of us to get together and say, you know, we're all going to benefit from this railroad, and so let's all pool some money together and we'll give it to the railroad companies to make sure that they build more railroads than they would build without our subsidy or our incentive. That's a huge coordination problem to get all of us together to make that decision. So instead what we do is we have elected representatives in this country. We have elected representatives who work on our behalf to subsidize the activities that we as a population benefit from and not subsidize, to tax those activities that we as a society are harmed by. So that's why it's the government, not you and me, just because it's a coordination problem. The government in that case is our agents, our representatives. Wait, tell me your name, I forget. Ivan? Yes, right. So patent protection laws are another example. They're another example of there's activities that generate positive externalities, and we need some way to create an incentive for people to undertake those activities. In the case of a patent, it's not a subsidy in the terms of money, but it implicitly is, because it's putting a protection on it so you can garner revenues from that activity for a longer period of time. Exactly right. Okay, so what size does the subsidy need to be for the railroad companies to produce a societally... what size does the subsidy need to be for the railroad companies to fully internalize the externality? That is, for the railroad companies to produce QS, the socially optimal quantity. What's the size of the subsidy? Subsidy equals, way up high. Ding, 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 ding. If the subsidy equals the size of the marginal external benefit, then the railroad construction company will have an incentive to produce the socially optimal quantity of railroad miles Q sub S. So, if the subsidy equals the marginal external benefit, then QS and QP will be the same thing. There are various ways of providing subsidies. So tax credits are one way. So one way to provide a subsidy is to say, oh, you're a company that has to pay taxes every year based on your net revenue. We're going to tell you that you can decrease your taxes by this percentage or this amount if you engage in this behavior. That's a tax credit. And that would be using the tax system as a subsidy. So you're reducing a company's tax bill. Another form of subsidy would be a patenting system. So a patenting system for inventions, which says you have 17 or 20 or however many years it is of private monopoly rights to your invention, and you can get the revenues from that invention, or in the case of pills as drugs, during the life of that patent. And we're going to protect your market for that whole period, and then at the end of the life of the patent, then any competition can come in and erode your profits. That's another way of offering a subsidy. The standard subsidy that we usually talk about is money, is offering money to producers. So write them a check. The government writes them a check, subsidy. In the case of the railroads, the late 19th century, none of those are what were used. I'm sorry, my dog was up last night at midnight and 2 and 3, and yeah. So I'm like, I feel like I have baby brain this morning. So my vocabulary is somewhere at around 2 in the morning out with the dog. So I'm going to stutter more today than normally. Damn dog. Okay, she's a very sweet dog, but I gotta tell you, when it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and once again, it's like, no, go away. Okay, instead of any of those forms of subsidy, what do we use? Land grants.